What up,
Hey,
David?
good morning.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes,
Awesome. Sorry, running a couple minutes late this morning.
no worries. I think we're just having people join in. But I did go
Okay,
ahead and co-host, and I'll just kind of do a short introduction.
okay,
Uh, give it over to you.
okay, perfect.
Okay. Well, just to keep be aware of time, we'll just get started, and as we have more friends join in, we will keep the room open. But good morning, everyone. My name is Leah with the Ada Jobs Foundation, and we are so excited today for you to join us for the Community Entrepreneurship Hour, which we have been doing for the past few months on the every second Wednesday of the month. And the goal was really to kind of model one of Kauffman Foundation's programs called the 1 Million Cups and provide an opportunity for entrepreneurs to kind of provide their pitch to a platform of community supporters, get some feedback, and then vice versa for the community to learn about entrepreneurs. But this week, as many of you know, is Global Entrepreneurship Week, which is an international celebration of innovators, job creators, and entrepreneurs. And we are super excited that Ada is officially taking part in GEW this year. And this is actually a GEW affiliated event. So, in light of that, I have invited some of my friends and some awesome entrepreneurs from across the country to come join us here virtually in Ada to not just share about their startup story, talk a little bit about how they see the ecosystem while they were starting their businesses and provide insights on that. So with that, we'll be following the pretty much the same format, 10, 12 minutes of presentation time, followed by opening up for Q&A. And with that, I would like to introduce our first speaker. David Ponraj is the founder and CEO of Startup Space. Startup Space is a social networking and resource platform for entrepreneurship ecosystem building. Startup Space works with communities and organizations to share information, find resources, and drive connectivity by creating a common space to support and build local business. So with that, David, thank you so much for joining us. I found it so interesting just to hear a little bit about how you got started, but we're definitely very excited to have you.
Okay, thank you, Dia. Can you hear me okay? Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for having me. I have been following Ada's progress with entrepreneurship and supporting small businesses. And so I'm very excited to be on the call today just to share a little bit about my story. In 2018, I quit my job working for Nielsen, the market research company, to help build a platform that can better connect entrepreneurs to resources in their communities. And what I found along the way is that small businesses everywhere are looking for resources that, if they had the resources, they can actually start their businesses more successfully. And it's not the availability of resources, it's the information needed uh, uh, to connect with the resource providers that was the big gap. And I personally faced that in one of the businesses I had started about 15 years ago, where I was working with bringing handmade goods from India to the US. And I found that the biggest hurdle for me was the fact that I didn't know all the resources available around me. And so, about 4 years after trying to make that business successful, I had to shut that business down. But along the way after that, I found that there were so many resources that if I had known about these resources, I probably would be able to, I'd have been more successful. And so, the journey that we're on today, we actually have a platform that allows you to find resources. And even along the way of starting this business, I've been able to connect with so many communities across the US, excuse me, including in Oklahoma City. In Oklahoma, we have a hub where people can connect with resources in the city and be able to find ways in which they can get support, either financial support or even if they're looking for co-founders, etc. And I'll just share like a couple things that I have found during the course of starting this business that has been extremely helpful for me. One was that early on, because I had had a business that had failed earlier, I had found that the best way to kind of make sure that you set yourself for success is to be able to kind of create some kind of a checkpoint in starting a business where you can have some feedback on your prototype. So in this business, I started out, I created a prototype of this platform. I got feedback from potential clients, etc. And once they said, yes, this is something that's valuable, then I went and built further. And if you're a small business out there that's starting out, you know, I would highly encourage you to try and make sure that you create a minimum viable product, an MVP of your business, because that can be really helpful in vetting your business. One of the things that I like to tell people is starting a business is about wealth creation. It's wealth creation for you, it's wealth creation for your family and for your community. And so, to do that in an effective way, you want to make sure that your investment in starting a business is going to actually pay out. And to do that, you want to make sure that early on you get a lot of feedback. One of the things that we do every single day in our business is really focus on the customer and the feedback that you get from the customer. So what we did for our first customer is when in 2018, when we had built the MVP of the product, I actually went and found in Denver a potential client. And it was just like this. I was speaking at a 1 million cups presentation. At the end of it, I said, are there people in this community who can use this platform? And somebody said, yes, there is. You can go to the comments on Champa, which is a co-working space, and they also support entrepreneurship. I walked in there, I didn't know anyone, and I said, hey, can I speak with the manager? And she said, I'm the manager. And so she said, what do you do? I said, well, I have this app for helping small businesses find resources. She said, well, we've been looking for something just like this. And so very serendipitously, she became our first customer. But then she gave us a ton of feedback on what worked and what didn't work with the platform. And so we took all of that feedback and we said, okay, we need to make this better, because if we make this better, there are a lot of other customers just like her that we can get access to. And so that's what we did. We went back to our drawing board, we took our MVP and we made it better. And then we went back and found more customers. And today we are in 30 different cities across the US, helping connect entrepreneurs to resources. And we've had some tremendous stories on the platform. For example, I think a single mother in Atlanta was looking to, had just got accepted into Y Combinator, and she came on the platform and had a bunch of questions for people who had already either gone through the Combinator cohort, or she was talking about how much equity are they going to ask for, how much money are they going to give us, what is the pluses and minuses of joining a cohort based accelerator like Y Combinator. And we've had other success stories, like for example, there's another I don't know if she where she was in her journey, but she'd come to our platform in New York and posted that she just got accepted into New York Fashion Week, and she was looking for an investor who might be willing to take her through that journey, because that would be a really expensive journey. And right there on the platform, somebody jumped and said, we would love to help fund your journey through the New York Fashion Week experience. There have been other stories of people hitting roadblocks and telling us, listen, we are we're at a place where we are struggling emotionally, and people have rallied together to say, go for a run, read this book, listen to this podcast. And ultimately the idea is to create a village, a community where you can get help from each other, from your peers. And so we've been on this journey, and it's been a tremendous journey so far. And I'm thrilled to answer any questions today, but also thank you for this opportunity to speak at GW.
Yeah, absolutely, David. Thank you. Well, we'll open it up to question, but I'll kind of kick it off with one of the questions is that what was the Denver ecosystem like when you started off, and how did you kind of navigate through that, and how was it helpful? Just some of your insights from that.
Yeah. So what we found in the Denver ecosystem, which is fascinating, is that people are very, very collaborative. That starting a business is, or starting or coming up with an idea and trying to get that idea vetted is actually encouraged, and people naturally gravitate towards this. And so creating that ecosystem of founders, and then all of the support that the founders need, right? You've got tech stars that came out of there. You've got so many big unicorns that have come out of Denver and the Boulder ecosystem. And I think it's because of that culture of innovation and the culture of always starting. They're a community of starters. And so that's something that really stood out to me when I went and kind of worked with them to bring them onto the platform.
Awesome, David. Thank you so much for talking us through it. It's really a fascinating story, and loved hearing you speak. I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on how the pandemic has affected your um, line of work, and what kind of shifts in, either in thought process or um, in processes that you had to adjust.
Absolutely. So yeah, before the pandemic, because we're a virtual platform, I had to kind of tell people why you need a virtual platform. So the pandemic has been a little bit of a blessing in disguise, is that I don't have to tell them why they need it. I just have to tell them how it works, right? So the pandemic has not affected all the businesses evenly, right? Some have actually, it had helped some. And we're really fortunate that we are one of the businesses that really actually saw like a doubling and a tripling of our revenue streams, because this kind of a platform was something that a lot of people are looking for.
Awesome.
Yeah.
David, quick question for you. In your opinion, what really defines a really successful startup ecosystem, and one that might be struggling? Because I know a lot of cities are hoping to get on this bandwagon to have economic development and do this through startups, and you've seen some successful ones, but what do you think is going to be this new age? Do you think they're all going to be following the Silicon Valley model, or are they going to be a little bit different?
Yeah, so the Silicon Valley model has been talked so much about, right? Because the reason why, one of the reasons why it's so successful is that there are all of the ingredients needed to take risk is available in Silicon Valley, right? Like they say the stories of like, if you have a pitch deck, you could get $1 million for having a pitch deck. Yeah, and so the propensity to take risk is really high. What I think the new age of startup ecosystems should look like is it has to have the culture of innovation and rewarding risk taking. And it also should celebrate the fact that people are innovating and not put a high burden on success as defined by reaching unicorn status or, I feel like when the stakes are high, it kind of prevents people from innovating. That's one. Then, of course, there are the other things where there are two supply and demand issues that every ecosystem needs to address. So on the supply side, we got to make sure there's capital and some other little things that really needed, like, quick access to capital for entrepreneurs who are able to show traction. On the demand side, you need to have corporations, government agencies, nonprofits that are willing to take a bet on these solutions. I know that San Francisco had an office in the government where they would source only from startups the solutions. And so think about it, like the biggest barrier for startups other than capital is for somebody to be willing to buy their product or pilot their solution. And so those are all things that don't need, big innovations or big investments. You can simply say 10% of all government contracts should come from only startups. Very simple. And then on the capital side, you got to lower the barrier and not base it on things like credit score, etc., but base it more on traction and be able to understand the likelihood based on the founder's experience, the likelihood of credit score, which is like a terrible way to raise capital. So I think if we fix some very small structural things, an ecosystem can really flourish. Of course, the big thing that nobody can, like all of these things that I just mentioned can be rule-based. The one thing that cannot be rule-based is culture. So you got to create a culture of failure and celebrating failure and celebrating starts versus only celebrating success.
Love it.
Yeah, absolutely love it. Especially the last part. And I think a lot of what we've been trying to do in ADA is that culture building aspect. Earlier this week on Monday, we had a side hustle night meetup where we were talking about how do we, kind of talk about that entrepreneurial itch that you have, but you still have a full-time job. How do you balance that? So to your point, a lot of things that we see in some tight-knit communities like ADA, which are smaller communities, is that a lot of the problem solving comes from issues that we see in the community. Maybe it's a gap in a diverse food option, or it's something even as simple as that. Do you have any insights from working with other smaller communities from around the nation? That's something you've seen that work really well as a best practice.
Can you repeat that last piece? What work as best practice?
Just in smaller communities, whether it's on the ecosystem building side or for founders, what have you noticed is does work well in like smaller size communities like ADA?
Yeah, so what we found, we work with lots of small communities. Actually, we work with rural communities in the Midwest, also the rural communities in the South. What we found is that rural communities have a great way to kind of come together because everybody knows everybody else, which is different from the urban cities. And I say people are people everywhere, but smaller communities have a more close-knit relationship just because there are fewer people, everybody knows each other. I think in smaller communities, I think there is this new idea of kind of helping rally the entire community together. And you can look this up. It's not my idea, but I've read it in several places, like how you have housewarming and baby showers, where these are all events where you come together to support an endeavor. A baby shower is coming together to help a mother have a child. Housewarming is a way to come and welcome somebody opening getting a new home, right? Having like these events, uh, somebody said, how about having like a startup shower, right? A baby shower brings in all the things you need for the baby when the baby is born. A startup shower can be when you start a business, all the help you need to start a business. So I think smaller communities have the ability to be more innovative and more creative because you can actually bring the community together versus in larger cities, it's hard to bring the entire city together just because of the practical things, right? So I think smaller communities have a lot more potential to be like the true village versus in larger communities, you might have so many resources that you might not actually need to have that real village that supports you.
Any more questions, guys? We are a pretty small group, so please feel free to unmute. We have a few more minutes with David before we move on to our next speaker.
Sorry, I've been hogging all the time, I guess. I did have one other question, David. I'm a international student from India as well. So I wanted to kind of ask you how the visa situations and how active is the international student community in the startup space. And I've been trying to get through the hurdles of getting visa situation fixed. And like Dia said, yes, you have an itch to start something and you have a plan, but the easy route is to just get a full-time job and just stick with that. So just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on how the international community gets through that hurdle of visa and procedures.
Yeah, so one option is to get a full-time job and do it through the side hustle, right? And kind of test your idea, etc. Because failure, you pay a bigger price for failure on a visa, right? Than somebody who's a citizen. When I started my first business, I was on an F1 visa. And I actually started the business and had two offices, one in India and one in the US. So I had, because I was an Indian citizen. And then I worked full time. And then once I got my citizenship, it became a lot easier. But yeah, there's a lot of things you got to navigate there. So I would say it definitely, and also, to start a business, you have to there's a few different capital that you need to be able to start, not just the financial capital. You also need the social capital, the intellectual capital, uh, and I'll explain what those are. The social capital is just you need to have a big network, right? And then the intellectual capital is having the know-how on how to do these things. And then, of course, you need the financial capital to start. And all of that gets better over time. I think they say like the most successful businesses are around 35 to 40 or 35 to 45 are the most successful businessmen, not because of their age, but because they've kind of built all of that capital over time. And so, and a lot of the things that I implement today, I worked in corporate America for 7 years, led really large teams. So it helped me with this business. So it's not a bad thing to kind of, have some experience in corporate America while you're, starting a business. I don't think that's a really that bad of a thing.
Right. No, thank you.
Great question. And I put something in the chat as well. And David, probably one more question that I'm just curious about is you mentioned about the commons in Champa, which I've had an opportunity to visit them. And I don't know if you were around when they just got started, but how has the role of that innovation hub, a co-working space, what role did it play in the ecosystem, and how much has it evolved over time?
Yeah, so what I would say is there's a really great 5-year report they have written. So maybe Dia, you can just pull it up and put it into the chat. Thecommons.co is the website, thecommons.co. Right on their homepage, towards the middle of the page, the third button is the button that actually takes you to their impact report, their 5-year impact report. It's a fascinating read how they started this 5 years back, and today that has become like the pivot point across the community. They actually use the Commons and they support over 10,000 entrepreneurs through their center every year. So they become like a rallying point where everybody in the community knows that if they're starting a business, you just walk into the Commons and serendipity will happen because there are other founders that are tinkering in real time and they've got hot desks where you can simply just go sit and work for the day, etc. There's always ideas being exchanged. I've walked into there first, of course, the first time I walked into there, I got a customer the very first time. I can't promise everybody that happens to everyone, but I've walked into there several more times, and they have a brilliant team that is extremely collaborative. They had Jackie who was running it when I walked in for the first time, and today they have Kaylin Acquisto running it. And they're both very dynamic women. Kaylin actually is the manager today, and always can always connect you with someone who can be that game changer for you. So those are all like little things that are really hard to, money can't pay for those little things, but if you know what you're looking for, you can kind of build that culture in, and that's how the Commons became like this pivot point where and they also run the other thing there that is really good that in small communities could be effective is to run actually cohort based education. And actually Startup Space does that where you can simply have plug and play startup based education right through the platform. uh, and so one of the things that we have found, like the Commons runs 5 different programs like this. One is called Will It Fly? It's a 2-hour workshop where you simply come and test out your ideas. And then they've got a more robust one where it goes through a 6-week program. And then they've got another one for women. So they've got lots of these programs. And I think that can be effective in small communities if you have 3 or 4 different programs that people can sign up for. Because the one thing I tell everyone, entrepreneurship is a learned sport. You don't, you're not born an entrepreneur. It is learned. Everything that I know is because either a mistake I made or a book that I read or something that I learned. Nothing that I've done in this business came naturally. Of course, the only thing natural is that I'm willing to sleep only 5 to 6 hours a night. that's something that you can, naturally decide to do. But everything else, I'm at any given point in time reading a podcast or a book, looking for the gaps of things that I don't know because I would think that that's what's going to hurt you, what you don't know. So, if you to be a founder, you have to be extremely curious and always learning. If you don't have those 2 skills, which you actually build over time. If you don't have those two skills, you're not going to be a successful entrepreneur.
Love it, David. That's some great advice, and we really appreciate the whole presentation and just having this great dialogue. So can we all please have a round of applause for David? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you can be available for a follow-up on LinkedIn and start. I will send the link as well. So yeah, thanks, David. Okay, with that, I'm so excited to introduce our next speaker. We've had an awesome start to the day. And Matt Morfopoulos, who's the co-founder and CMO of RespondFlow. RespondFlow is a relationship building software that automates text messaging, outreach, and follow-up for businesses. And they are currently based out of Tulsa. They are a graduate of the StitchCrew Accelerator program, batch 4. Is that correct, Matt? And
Yep.
they have also in the past year secured investment from state VC firms like Cortado and Atento Capital. So with that, Matt, thank you so much for joining us, and I'll let you take it over.
Sweet. Can I share my screen?
Yes, you should be able to. I've made you a co-host.
Sweet.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, it's good to be here, guys. Awesome. So just to kick things off, hi guys. Like Dia said, my name is Matt Morfopoulos. I'm one of the co-founders of RespondFlow. We're a text message software based out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we believe that every conversation should lead to a connection. And it's funny that David said a lot about connecting with other entrepreneurs, because really that word means a lot for me, and it resonates with me, just because honestly, our business probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for 4 people out of the University of Oklahoma. I was really fortunate to be a part of building a community out there. It's really true that it is about the people you surround yourself with and your peers, because through a lot of projects and trials and errors, you end up learning from everyone just as much as you learn from the experience itself. And so just before I get into everything, a little bit about us. This wasn't our first startup. This wasn't our first project. We'd kind of taken a bat at quite a few things, from chatbots to recommendation as a service platforms to startup commerce or funding platforms. We really hit the gamut of it and took a lot of swings. And so it's kind of funny that we were able to actually come together for a product and a business that helps businesses connect with customers. But before I get into the nuts and bolts of what RespondFlow does, I do want to go into more detail of like what we think of connection. And so we've kind of boiled it down to 3 things. The first thing is you have to say something, you have to communicate with somebody, whether that be a Facebook post, an Instagram post, maybe you even sent them an email. You have to engage with them in some way, and hopefully you're personal with it. Second, once you communicate, you have this dialogue through a conversation. That could be through a video, through a blog, or even a 2-way text message conversation if you're using RespondFlow. But 3, at the end of the day, and a lot of the top businesses know this, startups, doesn't matter, you build really strong relationships with your customers and with your people, because at the end of the day, that leads to more sales and more cash flow. And so this is a pretty simple model that a lot of people understand, but it's kind of gotten really diluted when it comes to online marketing and how people do business nowadays. And it's kind of sad because it wasn't always that way. So when you think of modern communication, like I like to call it the good old days, you had a few couple channels like email, you had some people calling, some people texting, and of course, maybe you had a website to go along with it. But this is really the golden age where Facebook and Instagram, you could post, you could DM people, and it was pretty organic. You know, you could have a conversation and connect in a really meaningful way. But what happened along the way was that social media became pay to play. We can thank Zuckerberg for that. You had to pay to communicate with your customers and communicate with your audience. And that created a whole onslaught of problems, especially for small and mid-sized businesses who lack the education, who lack the financing to actually pay these coveted billboards to get in front of their audience and in front of their customers, which is a sad truth of it all. But this really led to another thing, which was automation. And so people started automating their emails directly to customers because, I mean, I didn't want to pay Zuckerberg. So might as well go directly to the customer. And people were like, great, I can reach them, I can automate this, and I can do this at scale. I could literally email hundreds of people a day, and there's no limit to this. And of course, you can't have too much of a good thing. So sales reps got drowned out by robocalls, a lot of robocalls. And this was kind of the time that a lot of us on my team were getting into marketing startups, where growth hacking, which is basically how do you automate everything and everyone, which I think is kind of hoaxy in my own honest opinion, because it's really about the connection you make human to human. But this spawned this whole phrase of like everybody wanting to collect data about people. So you see a lot of businesses, I'm sure you've gone to a retail store, online to a Shopify store, and there's instantly a pop-up saying, I'll give you 5% off your next purchase, spin this wheel and we'll give you a discount, and it's all coming at you at once. Maybe they have a chat bot on the bottom. It's kind of gone to be a very overcrowded and noisy experience, not just for the customers, but also for the businesses that now have to take on this task when, hey, I'm just passionate about what I do, but I might not be technology savvy, I might not be a marketer, I might not be a salesperson. This kind of throws a wrench in all that. And before I get into more of that, then the politicians started sending texts using short codes. So I'm sure you guys have seen it if you've opted into Biden's or Trump's texts. Short code is just an industry term for a 5-digit number. It's a text message you can't reply to. So you can get in front of people, but no conversation there. So with all that being said, what does it mean to connect nowadays? There's a lot of communication happening. There's a lot of people saying a lot of things. There aren't a lot of conversations. And definitely the whole idea of building a relationship is kind of up in the air. And a lot of the bigger businesses can do this, but for the small to mid-sized businesses who don't have the education, they don't have the expertise, and they don't have the financing to back this up, it can be a real struggle. And so now they're being told, hey, I need to do all of these things just to be heard in this market, in this really crowded space. And so I go to technology, which to a lot of them looks like this. It's an aircraft. Hey, you have to pilot this airship. Here's sort of a manual. Maybe you'll survive, maybe you won't. But for a lot of businesses out there, that this isn't really accessible. And no matter how much education you give them, they're not really going to be able to use this to the best of their capabilities. And so when you have a lot of people who don't know how to use software, who don't know marketing, who are just saying a lot of noise, it gets to be really frustrating. And you get a lot of people who just drown you out. And kind of circling back to our first customer and the reason why we came about to be, and we found that there was a problem here. Martin, he's our CEO, my co-founder, and he was working as the business development manager at a prosthetics startup. Of course, they had run a campaign. They were really good about paying Zuck, so they were able to use it effectively. So they had generated, I want to say, 80 leads, all medical patients who were due for a prosthetic. Very niche group. They had all their information from medical. They were highly qualified individuals. We had their number, email, phone call, everything. But what happened was they had been doing the same playbook of, I'm going to send emails. Okay, nobody looked at their email. I'm going to try calling. But because everybody had been so used to robocalls, they distrusted these numbers that they had no idea about. Like if you were in Philadelphia or even like California, you got a phone call from Florida, you're like, who do I know here? Why are you calling me? Are you going to spam me? And so that's when Martin, from his past experience, decided, hey, why don't we try texting? They tried texting the customers and these leads, and they converted, I want to say 16% higher, converting meaning they sold more people. And then that was great, but now all of the employees at his startup were on their phone texting, and they were having problems with finding the right number. They were saying the right name. So maybe Rodney came in looking for XYZ prosthetic, and they actually said, hey, John, so excited you came in. So it was really a mess, not only for the staff and the sales team, but like for the business as a whole, because they were losing a lot of money just because they couldn't effectively connect with their customers. And that's really where RespondFlow came into the picture. It's kind of been a weird learning experience for all of us, where it's that was our first use case, but we've kind of evolved since then. It used to be, how do we make really technical marketers connect better? But we found this really big gap in the market in terms of, okay, there's an easy way to connect with people, just like Martin's use case, but how do we make this accessible to the general masses who don't know how to drive that airship, who don't know how to fly that plane? And so now to get into the nuts and bolts of RespondFlow, what we're really building and growing with here is just a simple and effective text messaging software that lets you connect with your customers and sell your passion. And what I mean by that, it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or an advanced business owner, whether you're an entrepreneur or a seasoned marketer, doesn't really matter. All that matters is that you're super passionate about what you're selling, the service you're selling. You know it so well. You handle the passion, you give us the passion, and we help you communicate that with your customers. And so we've really just built out a platform for these businesses, no matter what level they're at, to be able to connect and communicate more effectively so that they can build relationships that, of course, lead to more sales down the line. And so to go a little bit further, this is kind of how we do it. So we give you your audience. We're not going to be like Facebook and Instagram. We're not going to throttle you. You don't have to pay to maybe get in front of them. Really, you collect the number. Customers text in, they fill out a form, they're instantly in your RespondFlow platform. You own the data too, which is a major part of that. You know exactly what their name is, what their preferences are, where they came in, their most frequently bought product, and maybe the last time they even came in. And we can talk about why that's important later. But with that data, you can turn conversations into sales. And so what we found is that by hyper-personalizing text messages and giving customers opportunities to communicate with you when they want you, it's really turns into a really great sales machine. But it really helps you connect on a deeper level with your customers to understand what they really like and dislike. And so whether you're sending a link to buy a new product or you're a sales rep trying to just have a conversation with a customer, this hyper-personalization and fine-tuned text message really helps you spark engagement with your customers. And at the end of the day, it makes them feel like people and not just a number on a list, which is pretty much what a lot of these email marketing tools are doing. I'm sure if you've been on LinkedIn in the last 2 years, you've probably seen an influx of like DMs come at you that really shouldn't be even targeted at you. It's like, do you really know what I'm doing? And that sentiment is so true even for real customers buying just normal goods. They want to shop with people that they can be friendly with, that get them. And the best way you can do that is to have conversations with them. And so once they're a shopper, once they're shopping with you, and this is the real bread and butter of RespondFlow, is that we let you turn your shoppers into your loyal community. What I mean by that is whatever step along the way that your customers come into you, maybe they're a new customer, maybe they left a product in cart, maybe you haven't seen them in maybe a month, you can automatically send these text messages, hyper-personalized to them, just to have a quick touch base, pick up a conversation and see, hey, why did you leave that item in your cart? Can I help? I want to help you out. If they're a new customer, obviously one customer coming in once doesn't really show loyalty. And so you want to make sure that they're really happy about their purchase and they're going to come back for a lifetime. And so what we do is that we help you hook up to different CRMs, different POS systems, Shopify, or even if you're familiar with Zapier, we connect with everything. And so really what we're doing is helping you create this really seamless experience to help you better connect with your customers over the lifetime. And so at the end of the day, texts still perform really well. It's not just about the software as well. It's a great channel to market on, to talk to people with. It has a 98% open rate, 35% engagement rate. So at the end of the day, you know that when you're sending a text message to your audience, to your customers, that they're probably going to read it, and they're not going to be like those guys that Martin faced up against, where they just ignored the email, they ignored the phone call, because people appreciate text messages. It's a super personal channel or place to message a customer on. And so really at the end of the day, whether you're starting, growing, or scaling a business, RespondFlow is there to help you along the journey to connect with your customers. Thanks so much. If you want to text us or go on our website, here it is. Thanks so much, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Mitty, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Great presentation and great product, Matt. So I did have a question, a couple of questions. So I know you're trying to get away from the mass email marketing kind of things that are very robotic. People don't know. It's not to your point. It's not personal at all. What do you think about? So I feel your product is more catered towards small businesses and medium-sized businesses. Is there any offerings that you have for a larger business, and what would it look like?
Totally. You see, our goal right now is to simplify this, because no matter whether you're a mid-sized, big multi-location business or a one-shop mom and pop, really at the end of the day, it shouldn't be about the technology and learning a technology. It should be about the person using it. And so one of the things that we've done for a multi-location franchise, there are about 100 to 150 locations across the country. They're Southeast region, CBD product and cannabis product. We actually let them have multiple numbers. And so one of the biggest differentiators that we have, or biggest for these companies, is that each location can get their own local 10-digit number. And so what that means for them is that when a local customer is texted by that business on the local side, it's not from headquarters. It's not from the franchise owner in New York City. It's not from California. It's not from Seattle. It's from, hey, I'm in Ada, and I'm talking to people that I do business with every day, whether you're a franchise or not. And the beautiful thing about that is that from the franchise owner's perspective, you can send out marketing or text messages through all of the locations. And really that takes the burden off of the staff there, because now the owner of the business can send text through all of the locations. They go to the local customers, and then the local customers at the end of the day talk to the people that they know and trust that have built that relationship with them. And so we're helping big businesses feel more local in that regard.
Makes sense. No, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Hey, I have a question on your pricing. So you're a SaaS model, it looks like, and you get kind of discounts for paying yearly, monthly, and then your different plans. How did you come about your pricing and kind of your tiers, and then what adequate pricing was for each tier?
Oh man, I think originally it was we've gone through, this is our second iteration right now, and pricing is always one of those things that you're always figuring out. You don't want to switch it up in the middle of everything, but we knew that we didn't want to. We feel like if you're going to pay for a product like ours, it's a high quality. We know that you're going to generate revenue off of it, so we didn't want to lowball it. Really, I don't really have a good answer for that one. But the thing that we're trying to figure out right now is on our pricing, we're figuring out that it's not just the subscription of it, it's also the other ways that we can make money off of the text usage. And so really what we found is the flexibility to be able to text as much as you want, because of a lot of people that are texting, they give you tokens or points to use. The problem with that is that if you really need to spend or send 10,000 text messages in 1 month, then you're kind of barred from actually communicating, and it goes back to the same problem. And so that was the key thing in the pricing model that is a constant, that no matter what, you have a million different ways that you can text, or you have the flexibility to send 1 text a month or 1 million if you really want to. And it's that flexibility that we really care about.
Gotcha. Thank you.
No worries.
Matt, I had a question, a two-part question. One is, can you share a little bit about your experience at the StitchCrew accelerator? And well, I'll ask my second question after you.
Totally. First off, Erica, Chris, and Gabby, they're all awesome. They're they're really here to help. They're not trying to make a buck like a lot of accelerators are out there, which, just a forewarning, there will be people trying to get you to buy into accelerators. I mean, you might want to, you might not, but just know that that is a resource for you. My experience through it was, it's given me a lot of friends. It's given me a lot of people, just like I said, when I met my co-founders, just people that really got what you're going through. Because like David said, he's not sleeping. Most of the time, you don't get a lot of sleep if you're growing really fast or you're doing a lot. So having that built-in network or that crew is really important, especially for your just for your sanity a little bit, just to kick back and really talk about what you're going through. Because at the end of the day, you could talk to your friends or your family about it, but if they're not doing what you're doing, it's really hard to relate to that. And so I'd highly recommend going through the program if you can. They're amazing people. They have a really amazing network, and they're very gracious about helping you, especially as an entrepreneur in Oklahoma, or no matter what your creed is, it doesn't matter for them. They just want to help people grow.
That's really helpful. And just a shameless plug here, that StitchCrew demo day is coming up tomorrow. That's how I learned about RespondFlow last year. So every year they have awesome companies coming out of it. So shout out to them. My second question was, what are some of your goals moving forward? And if you can share a little bit about some of the projects that even we discussed about and some of the goals in that area.
Totally. So goals right now, I mean, obviously, we're trying to make this thing as simple as possible. So whether you're a small business, you don't need to have the technology requirements to actually get started. If you're a seasoned marketer, we still have that flexibility when it comes to really high-end features. But we want to make sure that you're able to access that, but not have to relearn what is text message marketing, because even seasoned marketers don't really know how to use the new channel really effectively. And so it's helping both ends. But then really the end goal, and this is something we're still playing with, is going international. Because in the US, there's a couple players, they're doing similar things, but at the end of the day, internationally, there really isn't any major powerhouse. So our big goal is just to be a leader when it comes to text message marketing and connection for small, mid-sized businesses across the globe. So that's our goal. We're always headed to make our product better and kind of help other people connect no matter where you are.
Great, thank you. And I guess since we have 10 more minutes, if you don't mind, Matt, sharing, if somebody is an aspiring entrepreneur kind of in this field of kind of marketing and technology, what is one advice you would give them?
This is something that I learned really early on, and I was that kid in college that wanted to learn everything. I wanted to learn how to do paid ads. I wanted to learn digital marketing. I wanted to learn how to code, everything. My biggest thing that I would say, especially somebody just getting into the game, is you don't need to be hyper technical. Like, honestly, there's a lot of technical people out there, and you need to understand it and how it works a little bit, but you don't necessarily need to know how the entire watch works. What I'd recommend is getting really good at the basics of people beyond just technology, because technology always changes. You saw that in the presentation I had. Things change really fast of what you can do, but at the end of the day, and it's just the human truths that we find of what it means to be a human that really stays true. And so whether you're building a product, marketing a product, selling a product, projecting finances, it's all about that person who's using it. It's not about the widgets, the tools, it's just about the person.
Love it. Thank you, Matt. Do we have any more questions for Matt? I don't see
Yeah, I'm just going to ask real quick, kind of your experience or maybe advice with startups looking to go the venture capital route. I know, in Oklahoma, I know Cortado is kind of new versus, in Houston, Colorado, et cetera, it's more accessible to contact those venture firms. But in Oklahoma, for a startup, kind of what methods do you recommend? Or just kind of that overall experience, because it can be kind of a daunting task, for a founder that's maybe not involved, with a startup, especially from rural, towns.
Right. I guess the biggest advice I'd have first one is know your things really well, and don't take experts' advice for what they are, because nobody really understands the problem you're solving better than you do. So whether you're talking to a VC on the coast or here, always make sure to fact check, always make sure that they have your best interest at heart, because at the end of the day, they don't know your problem better than you do. And second of all, especially in the Midwest or in smaller towns, I'd say the network really matters. David hit it on nail on the head on that one. That really it is about the network. So I would really advise going on Twitter is a great resource where a lot of VCs are. Just be very audacious about it. DM them, don't even worry about it if they love that stuff. So the more out there and personal you can be, the better. And as for raising capital, always make sure you know who you're going to bed with. Always make sure that it's not just about the money, it's that they're able to provide actual tactical knowledge, because at the end of the day, if they don't know your business model, if they don't know the ways to grow a business, they might have the money to help you grow and the network, but if they can't do it themselves, then you'll have a big misalignment when it comes to the key metrics to grow your business, what's important to grow your business. And so if you do it wrong, you might be going off to the wrong path. And so have a really strong sense of self, and it always goes back to that. Know your product, know your people, know the solution, because at the end of the day, you know it better than your investors are. They're just kind of poking at it and seeing if they can help in any way.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Matt. Any other question, guys? Okay, well, if not, I'm sure I will send Matt's email and a follow-up email if anybody wants to connect afterwards. But Matt, I really appreciate your time today, and just learning a lot from your pitch as well. I know I heard it last year, and just looking at your deck today again, just great information there. So thank you, really appreciate your time here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so we are going to do a quick quiz giveaway for Arbuckle Craft Coffee giveaways. So I hope you have been taking notes. How this works is that I put a question in the chat, and the first person to get the response via the chat, not speaking out, wins the giveaway. So considering the number of people on the call, we'll be doing one today. So if everybody is ready, I'm about to type the message in the chat. So the question is, what was the name of the startup what was the name of the first customer and organization that was Startup Space's first customer in Denver? We talked about this quite a bit in detail, so hopefully somebody will get it. Uh-oh, did I come in with a hard question? Yeah, I'll give it a few more seconds. All right, let's try one more question. This one should be Canopy close. So the correct answer was Commons on Champa. That is the co-working space in Denver. Okay, let's try one more question, one more chance. And this was a little more recent in the presentation. So what is the percentage of open rate for text? And Matt mentioned this in his presentation today. Trevor, good job. 98% is correct. So Trevor, I will send you an email with the information for your gift card. Congratulations. Again, thank you all so much for joining. Thank you to our speakers. Really appreciate it. And in celebrating Global Entrepreneurship Week here in Ada, we will be back again in December. with a new set of speakers and an opportunity to network. So again, thank you all so much and have a great rest of your day. And see you next month.